The so-called war on women, it continues. So I actually did my no filter on it, and I feel like this is an issue that we didn't really need to bring up again until Republicans decided, no, we're going to continue launching this war on women, destroying their reproductive rights, questioning whether or not we should help single mothers with government assistance, all of that. And you can't help but now talk about it again. And then they blame Democrats for talking about it too much. Stop trying to pass these ridiculous policies. Well, the recent story involves Rand Paul. Rand Paul was on CNN talking to David Gregory about how women have already won this war on women, and we need to stop talking about it and move on. Take a look.
We have a lot of debates in Washington that get dumbed down and are used for political purposes. This whole sort of war on women thing, I'm scratching my head because if there was a war on women, I think they won. The women in my family are incredibly successful. I have a niece at Cornell Vet School, and 85% of the young people there are women. In law school, 60% are women. In med school, 55%. My younger sister's an OBGYN with 6 kids and doing great. I don't see so much that women are downtrodden. I see women rising up and doing great things. And in fact, I worry about our young men sometimes because I think the women really are out competing the men in our world.
So in that video, he's really trying hard to distract you from what's really happening, okay? So just because he has some anecdotal evidence of his female family members succeeding and thriving doesn't mean that Republicans haven't done anything to try to destroy women's rights. I mean, okay, so you have a bunch of women in your family that are doing great. And then he tries to cite some actual evidence, right? Some statistics that claim that women are really kicking ass in education, which, by the way, they are. Women are doing great in education. However, the statistics that he cited were completely made up. So he said that 60% of women or 60% of students in law school are women. It's actually 46.7%, totally made up that number. And when it comes to med school, only 46.7% of the students are women. He claimed that 55% are. So again, made up those numbers. But that's a completely separate issue, right? What we're focusing on is the policies that Republicans are trying to pass, and those are the policies that violate certain rights, whether it's reproductive rights, things like the Violence Against Women Act, which 149 Republican members of Congress voted against. Those are issues that we're trying to draw attention to. And if you claim that that's not part of the war on women, I don't know what the war on women is, right? So who am I bringing in? Who wants to talk about this issue? Jen. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. You can go ahead.
I love the fact that you got the numbers right and accurate. I love that. Kudos to you. I just wanted to mention that the war on women is over. My God, women are still making 77 cents to the dollar. Is in ratio to what men make. African American women are making 68 cents to the dollar in ratio to what African American men make 56 cents to the dollar for Latino women to Latino men. 18% of the members of Congress are women. 18%. The Rwandan parliament has a 64% rate of women in it. So this war on women it's over. Other members of Paul's party have been attacking Wendy Davis for for claiming to have been a single mother when she was still married but receiving spousal support. So how does this align with this armistice on the war on women that he's declaring?
Here's the problem. The war on women exists purely in rhetoric. I understand that right now there's income inequality with women and we're making less, but that gap is closing. I understand that people have anecdotal evidence. I certainly could say I don't feel like there's a war on women, and if there is, I won it. I'm educated, I make my own money, I don't feel like I've ever been oppressed. I don't feel like anybody in my life has ever told me I can't do anything I want to do or that I can do it not as well as a man. However, people need to realize that is anecdotal and that has nothing to do with the larger experience of more women. So I think one of the biggest problems is kind of examining the terms that we use for things, and we call it the war on women. It's really polarizing. That gives the power to people like Rand Paul to go, oh, war on women, is that really a war if you're only making a little bit less, or is it really a war if my kids are in medical school? I think the term the war on women really distracts us from the issues, which are basically like income inequality and reproductive rights. In talking about those things specifically is more important than going, there's a war on women, because then you give people the opportunity to say that we're being hysterical women declaring a war on ourselves.
So let me jump in very quickly, because I think during the last election in 2012, using that type of framing worked very, very well, okay? So the reason why Democrats kind of coined it was because they really wanted to drive that point home, and it worked.
It's the same reason Republicans coined Obamacare, because it really works just to label something and get people's heads straight.
Although I will say Republicans are now calling it the Affordable Care Act, because now that it's been enacted and certain parts of it are benefiting people, they're like, oh shoot, people like this and it's popular. Let's go back to calling it the Affordable Care Act, not Obamacare. We don't want to give them credit. Anyway, but going back to my point, now I feel like it's polarizing. It's not working the way that it did during the 2012 election. And I think you're right. It distracts people, including Democrats, including progressives, from what the real issue is. And the real issue is you have the Republican Party proposing things like capping government assistance to women who are having children out of wedlock, right? That's something that Rand Paul just recently advocated for. So that's not only going to hurt women, that's going to hurt children as well, right? So it's basically a war on anyone who doesn't live their lives the way that you want them to live, right? So you want to come in and discuss this a little, Max?
I mean, I hope there's no war on women, because I'm totally outnumbered here.
We'll get you, all right? We'll jump you on the show.
I know, I trust you guys. I think, I mean, he has no right to say, like, I mean, thank you, Republican Party, for allowing women the opportunity to go to med school and stuff like that. You know, I think
we should be so lucky.
Right, but at the same time,
I know somebody who went to veterinary school, therefore there's no war.
I mean, didn't they say that they're stepping up their anti-abortion efforts?
They are.
They are.
In the last 3 years, there were 205 new anti-abortion laws in the United States. And look, if reproductive rights is not your thing and you're not really concerned about that, I mean, you got to think about Republicans that are trying to redefine rape. Again, 149 Republican members of Congress voted against the Violence Against Women Act, and that act is supposed to protect women who are victims of domestic violence. And by the way, I should note, there's a portion in there that also protects men against domestic violence. Okay, so if you have a party that's voting against that type of legislation, there's a little bit of a problem there. When they're telling you, hey, you know what, we don't want to give you government assistance if you have a child out of wedlock, but at the same time, we want to do away with the accessibility of contraception and reproductive health or reproductive clinics, then, I mean, what else are they trying to do? I mean, what else would you call it? You see what I'm saying?
Right. I think it is a war on women to an extent, but again, it really is about two different, complete, separate issues, which one would be income inequality, which if you really looked at the solutions of that would be more like personal responsibility and people, you know, women especially, putting themselves more in a position of helping other women and being educated and just climbing, because the more valuable women are to society, the more they're going to get paid. But when it comes to reproductive rights, that's a complete other issue, and that is kind of, I feel like, a small majority of old, white, conservative, almost misogynistic men are the loudest people speaking about it, and that's the problem. Most people do not share the opinion of just some random congressman from Texas who's going to go on some tear, or on someone from Kentucky. And I'm not saying those states are unimportant. I'm saying they may have extreme opinions that are only, you know, if you're completely against abortion, that is your opinion, but voices need to get louder in opposition to that. And right now, the loudest voices are just coming out of our government. And as you said, it's mostly men. It's mostly old white men. Eventually, they'll get phased out. But while they're not being phased out and still have the big platform, it's just up to people to be like, oh, okay, you think that rape doesn't exist or women were asking for it, and laugh at them. I think we need to laugh. I think it's very serious, but it's also funny that people can be that stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of like that you have that kind of stupidity, you know, out for everyone to see, because again, the Todd Aikens of the world totally destroyed the Republican Party in 2012.
And got defeated by Claire McCaskill, and he just became this poster child for being, if you're going to say idiotic things like basically that rape babies, you know, babies can't be born of rape, and say ridiculous things that people know are ridiculous, you're going to get phased out. Other people are going to beat you in elections, and thank God for exposing you in that fraction of your party that is so stupid.
It's great for comedians, it's great for panel shows.
Definitely.